What's it all about, really? Why did all of a sudden the word Valentine become associated with love? Really, it comes down to a saint who lived in third century Rome. He was Saint Valentine was actually he was a priest, actually bishop of the Catholic Church under Claudius the Emperor. And what was going on then? Well, a few things. Why is he associated with love? Because he was very much interested, St. Valentine was very much interested in making sure that people could get married. Now, why is that the case? Because the emperor said that the soldiers at the time should not be married. He wanted them to have a sole focus on serving the state. And St. Valentine said, nope. This is third century, so this is early Roman Empire. There was a lot of persecution. And St. Valentine said, no, I think we're going to try to find a way to minister to the persecuted Christians and make sure that marriages are happening for the soldiers. So he would actually go ahead and marry them in secret. So what does that do for, this is, I think, a true example of love here. I love the fact that that was the reason that he's associated with love, is because he cared about sacramental marriage. We think of Valentine's Day and we just think, oh, I got to give my cutie, my loved one, somebody a little Valentine's Day card, or a card that says I love you. I need to give roses because I love them. I need to get them a teddy bear, whatever the case may be, where we want to express our love. And Valentine's Day is a day for a lot of cliche type love, a lot of red, a lot of pink and white colors, and that's beautiful. I mean, I think that that's so wonderful. The level of initial steps of a relationship. Sometimes we say that you're in puppy love or infatuated state of love or something along those lines. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. But what I like about the story of St. Valentine is that he actually cared not just about the feeling of love. And I think that, unfortunately, that's what we celebrate a lot. It's just the feeling of love. I want to feel loved. When in reality, he cared about the sacrament of marriage and expressed love between a man and a wife. True love, where the Catholic Church recognizes it as a sacrament, not just a feeling, not just a thought, not just an emotion, but really a sacrament. If we think about it that way, love is a sacrament fulfilled in marriage. Now, we can argue love can be a sacrament fulfilled in holy orders. Love can be fulfilled in any sacrament. And that is true, because what is a sacrament? It really is a representation of Christ before us, Christ on earth. But in the sacrament of marriage, in a very special way, we see the union of two people. Union of two people where they say that they love each other and they're going to care for each other. And it very much represents the relationship between the Holy Trinity, where we see the relationship between God the Father and God the Son, where they loved each other to no end. And it produced the third person of the Holy Spirit. We say that every time in the Creed. We believe that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, meaning that it proceeds from their love for each other. In the same way, the sacrament of marriage also represents the love of God for the church. It's two entities, God and the church, Jesus, we say the groom and the bridegroom of the church, coming together in love, a special union, which we hope will be for eternity. But in sticking to our traditional thought of love, the idea of marriage, as St. Valentine was very much interested in. And just a few important notes of St. Valentine's, I was looking him up a little bit. So he was martyred. He's a patron saint. Let's back up a little bit. He's a patron saint of what? Courtly love, epilepsy. Who would have thought? So if you know anybody who has epilepsy or suffers from epilepsy, very challenging condition to treat, and it can be debilitating. But let them know that St. Valentine is their patron. They can pray to St. Valentine, and hopefully he will help them with their epilepsy, as it is believed that he had cured a child with epilepsy. Also, he is the patron saint of beekeepers. Who would have thought? Beekeepers. There you go. If you like honey, maybe St. Valentine's Day is somebody to pray to. They always say save the bees. They're great for the environment. Well, let's ask St. Valentine's to give us a little bit of an effort there and save the bees. Just interesting facts. So next Valentine's to my wife is going to be a bee. She might not understand what that's all about, but maybe we'll set up a hive or something. But St. Valentine, interesting, he was a martyr. And I think that he died a martyr, and this was in 269. Because he was ministering to the persecuted Christians. And like I said, he was secretly, under the pain of persecution, obviously under the pain of death, helping the soldiers have real sacramental marriages and a fulfilled relationship. I think that that's such a special way to be a martyr. Sometimes we imagine people being martyred because they're questioning about their faith, and that's obviously what it comes down to. But he did it for the sake of love. How many times do we say that we want somebody who's going to love us to death? Or how many times do I say, I love you to death? Well, Christ says that every time on the cross. That's the true ultimate end of love. He's saying, I love you to death. And St. Valentine, really, in our traditional thought of love as a marriage, as a relationship, died a martyr, really ministering to the Christians and making sure that they could fulfill their love. I think that's important. It's important to think about, because when we think about love in society, a lot of times it becomes very much a cliche kind of love. We celebrate the feeling, I think, a lot, and we don't necessarily celebrate how it's lived out. And as Catholics, well, how do we live it out? What is it that love is all about? The reality is the end goal of a relationship, once you start courting, and this is what I tell my kids, is what's the point of dating? What's the point of courting? What's the point of being in a relationship if you're not thinking of the way God set up the relationship between man and woman? And really the end goal is to decide, do we want to get married and make a life with each other where we celebrate how much we love each other? That's why it represents the relationship between God and his people. God said, I'm going to enter into a relationship with you, and I'm going to love you until the day I die, or until, and on the crucifix we saw that. But really, for God, it's for eternity. Jesus said, I'm going to be with you forever. So there's no question about that. But really, a lot of times, what happens in relationships? What is it that people argue about? What is it that people find challenging in relationships when there are the hard times? The good times are great. That's not a problem. You can enter a loving relationship, and that's wonderful when you're looking out for each other. But where does the breakdown happen? Where do we go from Valentine's Day being roses and chocolates and teddy bears to all of a sudden ending up in Dr. Sandoval's office and deciding, do we want to stay married or not? Well, what usually happens is this. From my perspective of things, when people come from couples counseling, first, couples counseling to me is not just, oh, we're dating and I'm going to do counseling. I wouldn't do counseling for that. I'd say you're dating and that's great. But when people say, no, we're dating and we want to get married, we want to see if this works out. Okay, so that could be courtship counseling. It's not marriage counseling. There is no courtship specialty. When you become a therapist, there's an option for marriage and family therapy, but there's no therapy for boyfriend, girlfriend, without the goal of, you really ask them, well, what's your goal? Well, we want to get along with each other or whatnot. Okay, that's great. But from a Catholic perspective, I say, well, are you headed towards marriage or not? Because if you just want to date, well, what is it that we're doing therapy for? What's your end goal if you don't have a common goal? Our common goal is just to date and live together. Well, not entirely going to be helpful because you haven't committed to each other. So that's one of the big things that we need to ask ourselves in modern day society. We are very, very open to having relationships where people say there's all different types of relationships and whatnot. And, we don't have to get married. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I love the person. But from a Catholic perspective, and if I'm going to do couples therapy, I say there has to be some kind of goal of marriage, because you need to make a decision. Are you going to be committed to each other or not?